This is your news source evening bulletin for today, Monday, the 30th day of May in the year 2022. I'm Gordon Mosley reporting, and here's what we're tracking tonight. A request by the President's office for the consultations on constitutional appointments between the President and the opposition leader to restart those discussions today was turned down by the opposition leader over scheduling conflicts. 3 weeks after the first meeting between President Finale and opposition leader Aubrey Norton, the President's office wrote to the opposition leader on Friday, requesting that he attends a meeting today for the restart of the consultations. Instead, Mr. Norton wrote to the Minister of Governance, Gilda Scherer, this morning and informed her that the meeting should have been held no more than 1 week after the initial meeting 3 weeks ago, in keeping with their agreement and joint statement. Mr. Norton said his schedule would not have allowed him to attend the meeting today. He accused the government of not sticking to the original agreement and still holding back on information regarding some of the nominees for the various constitutional commissions. Norton also said he would like to see the consultation regarding the confirmation of a Chancellor and Chief Justice placed on the agenda, since it is of national importance. He has already indicated that he will support the confirmation of Justice Janet Cummings as Chancellor and Roxanne George as Chief Justice. He said the government's position that the President is not prepared to consult on the judicial appointments at this stage is a gross dereliction of the concerns of civil society groups and the people of Guyana. In a Facebook Live statement this afternoon on the consultations, the President said that he was not given any reason for the opposition leader's absence from the meeting today.
On the 27th of May, Minister Gilda Scherer invited Mr. Norton to a meeting here at the Office of the President to continue the consultation with me for today at 2 p.m. As I said, it is now 2:34 p.m. and the leader of the opposition has absented himself from this meeting. We have received no verbal or oral communication from the leader of the opposition or his office. Notwithstanding that, also, in our letter, which I will go through in a few moments, to the leader of the opposition inviting him to this meeting, we made it very clear to him that in the event that he may not attend, he can share his thoughts with us in writing.
Although a letter from the opposition leader's office to the President's office bearing today's date was shared with the media up to this afternoon, the President said he did not receive any communication from Mr. Norton.
Not only did he not attend today, but he has not provided anything in writing. I just wanted to take this time to outline the factual basis of this consultation. I have not spoken before on this issue in the press, despite the false narrative in the last few days by Mr. Norton, because I believe that staying true to the Constitution, these are important national issues, and I wanted it completed in an environment of respect, in an environment of dignity, because as I have said before, I am pursuing one Guyana.
President Ali said by not attending today's meeting, the opposition leader has demonstrated his unwillingness and immaturity in dealing with important national issues. It was explained that the reason the meeting could not have been held earlier was due to Guyana hosting the Regional Agriculture Investment Forum and plans for the country's independence celebrations last week. The leader of the opposition said those events were being planned long before the President committed himself to continue the consultations no more than 1 week after the initial meeting 3 weeks ago, and he therefore would not accept the excuse. Aubrey Norton became opposition leader in April, following the resignation of Joe Harmon from the post. The President had refused to hold any meetings or consultations with the former opposition leader in the year and a half that he held the position. More news coming up in just a moment.
How fast is fiber? Think fast. GTT Fiber has 3 packages with download speeds of 50, 100, and 150 megabits per second. That's fast enough to stream movies and music, to chat with Gran and Fran, to study, and more. What would you do? Upgrade to GTT Fiber today and don't get left behind tomorrow.
Plans are moving forward for the establishment of the landmark gas-to-energy project. Gas will be piped from the Stabroek block operations to shore. The project is expected to cut electricity rates by more than half and deliver significant benefits to Guyanese.
When cold, it's thicker than honey. When hot, it's thinner than water. Mobile One adapts and readapts to last longer. 16,000 kilometers between oil changes. That's your engine evolved.
Sol Guyana is the authorized distributor of mobile lubricants.
Get in the game with Buster. Win a full gaming setup, Xbox X, gaming chair, gaming speaker and headset, or any of over 60 weekly prizes like Oculus Quest 2, Mini 2 drone, Nintendo Switch, and many more top gaming prizes. Check below for details.
The government's much-touted Milo Falls Hydropower project, which was set to begin this year with a completion date of 2025, is experiencing a setback as the contracted Chinese company wants to back out of the original agreement. Back in March, the cabinet granted its no objection for the Office of the Prime Minister to engage the China Railway Group to construct the Milo Falls Hydropower project based on a build, own, operate, transfer model, where the company will supply electricity to the Guyana Power and Light Company, and where the Chinese company would also provide the entire equity required by the project and undertake all of its risk and costs. Under that model, the company would have to stand all of the costs of the project up to the commissioning. At the end of a 20-year period, the project would revert to the government at no cost. The company is now having a problem sustaining that model. Vice President Barajagdeo.
Not that they're not in favor of it, they simply can't raise the financing because that meant they had to build it, own it, and supply us the power at a particular price, and then 20 years after transfer it to the government for free. That was what they bid on.
Mr. Jagdu admitted that the negotiations are currently very difficult, and the company has informed the government that it wants to step out of the current contract arrangement and move to a new arrangement where the government finances the project and the company handles the engineering, procurement, and construction contract.
If we can't change that, if we can't get it done under the boot, we can't proceed with the company. We'll have to retender. They will not be able to conclude the contract because that is what the tender was about.
The hydropower project has been talked about for several years. There was an attempt back in 2013 to get the project underway, but that effort was short-lived as it hit a number of stumbling blocks. It was completely shelved under the coalition government as there were concerns about its costs and the contracts. The PP Civic administration rushed into reviving the project just after it retook office in 2020, in keeping with one of its campaign promises. Taxi driver Matthew Monroe, who was last week freed of a murder charge after the prosecution admitted to having no evidence linking him to the crime, is calling on the Guyana police force to reopen the case and find the real killers of the high school teacher, Kessia Branch. Monroe was charged with the teacher's murder and remanded to jail 5 years ago. He maintained his innocence from the time he appeared in court and throughout the case. At a press conference today, the former murder accused said he was taken away from his family for 5 years for a crime he did not commit. He said he wants answers, and he also believes the family of the dead teacher is deserving of answers too. The police arrested Monroe for the murder after claiming that he was the last person to see the teacher alive. He denied that claim and said the only evidence that the police used to link him to the crime was a call that was made to his phone number early in the morning by the teacher, the same morning that she disappeared and was later found. He said he never spoke to the teacher on that night or the morning, but knew her from previous taxi jobs. The teacher's battered body was found in a trench close to the Repentir Cemetery the morning after her night out with a group of friends. She was rushed to the hospital where she remained on life support for 2 days, never regaining consciousness and eventually passing away. Mr. Monroe said nothing tied him to the murder, and there was even an attempt by the police to get him to confess to the crime by beating him. One of his attorneys, Dexter Todd, called the situation a travesty, since the state kept the man behind bars for 5 years, while knowing that there was no evidence against him. Attorney Todd said there have been other similar cases, and he believes the state needs to be held accountable and responsible for that injustice. The attorney also said there is a need for better investigations to be conducted by the police before cases are presented to the court. Let's tell you now that the president has not yet made up his mind on who he believes should be the country's next substantive chancellor of the judiciary and chief justice. That's according to the vice president, Barra Jagdeo. During a press conference today, Mr. Jagdeo said the president is looking at the issue. The opposition has been pressing for the 2 justices already acting in the top judicial positions to be confirmed. The Constitution requires the agreement of the opposition leader to the president's nominees. But the vice president today said the president will have to examine the track record of the judges before any nomination is made for the 2 top posts.
The president has to examine track record and everything else before he makes up his mind though as to who he wants to recommend. He has to examine. I don't think it's an automatic process. Therefore, if it's automatic, then no bad need for this cause. So whenever the president is ready, he will inform the opposition leader, and then the opposition leader will have a chance to express a view as to whether he agrees or not.
The government has long accused the opposition of stalling the process to appoint the top judicial office holders, but opposition leader Aubrey Norton has repeatedly signaled his intention to have the matter addressed. Mr. Norton has requested that the matter be put on the agenda for discussion when he meets with the president. The matter is currently not on the agenda for the planned meetings. While the opposition has indicated its support for the confirmation of the 2 judges, Mr. Jagdeo said the PP civic government is not yet at that stage.
I think the PPP government will not make decisions based on the caprices associated with moods. They will make a decision, and the president will make a decision on the basis of studying the facts and the ability of people and what is good for the country.
Recently, the president of the Caribbean Court of Justice, Justice Adrian Saunders, called for the substantive appointments to be made before the end of this year. While the acting Chief Justice has been heavily praised by the PP civic government, the acting Chancellor has faced some harsh criticism, with one government minister last year calling for her to be defrocked over one of her rulings. The partly decomposed body of New Central High School home economics teacher Omega Alt was found in her Crane West Bank, the Marara home on Friday afternoon. Investigators suspect that she died at least 3 days prior to the discovery. The body was discovered by the dead woman's brother, who visited her home after repeated calls to her phone over the past several days went unanswered. The Guyana police force has since issued a wanted bulletin for the husband of the dead woman. His name is Clarence Farley, and anyone knowing his whereabouts is asked to contact the nearest police station or call 911. He was last seen on Monday last when he took the couple's young child to the woman's sister in Diamond on the east bank of the Marara and claimed that he was heading to the interior region for a job. Family members became suspicious when the teacher never made contact with them about the child, and they could not reach her by phone. Eventually, on Friday afternoon, the dead woman's younger brother became very worried and broke into her house, only to discover her rotting body. A post-mortem examination was today conducted on the body of the teacher Omega Alt. The government pathologist found that she died from brain hemorrhage and multiple trauma to the head. The body has been handed over to the relatives for funeral arrangements. While the Ministry of Labor has joined the investigations into the death of two men while at work at a trans rice mill in Maikoni late on Friday. The two men, Shakil Bus and Gusham Narain, reportedly fell off a scaffold after being electrocuted while executing their work duties. A part of the scaffold had reportedly come into contact with an electric wire, shocking one of the men. The other man attempted to help his colleague, and he too was shocked, and they both fell from the scaffold. The Labour Ministry investigators are examining the cause of the incident, and additional details are being probed. The Guyana Police Force opened its own investigation into the workplace deaths on Friday evening and is continuing its investigation tonight. Just over a month after she was busted at the Chedijagan airport and entered a guilty plea to drug trafficking charges, 25-year-old former media worker Neil Williams opted to change her plea to not guilty today as she returned to court for sentencing. Back in April, the presiding magistrate had delayed the sentencing until Williams was evaluated by a psychiatrist. In court today, after the accused opted to change her plea, the charge was read for a second time to her. She entered a not guilty plea this time and was immediately remanded to jail until late June, when the matter comes up again for hearing. Although 3 persons were charged in connection with the airport drug bust, Williams was the only one who pleaded guilty at the first appearance. The other 2 accused, 27-year-old GRA Customs Officer Shamika Caesar and ex-Customs Anti-Narcotics Unit Officer Anosuku, were granted bail at their first appearance back in April. The case against them is ongoing. Williams was allegedly held at the Chedijagan International Airport back in April with more than 17 pounds of cocaine in her carry-on luggage in the false sides of a laptop bag, and another 3.6 pounds of the cocaine strapped to her body. The discovery of 54 pounds of cocaine and several large parcels at the Demerara shipping wharf on Lombard Street over the weekend has once again raised concerns about security at the country's shipping ports. No one has been arrested over the large drug bust. The bag with the cocaine was found stashed inside a container that was still to be loaded for shipment, and Kano agents believe it was being prepared to be shipped to another destination where its value might be higher. In a statement, Kano said the cocaine carries a street value of more than 17 million Guyana dollars. The local drug enforcement and port security agencies have been looking to step up monitoring and security at the various shipping ports in the country. Just recently, the U.S. government and the UNODC hosted a training program on port security and maritime security. The training exercise examined the security of container cargo operations and vessel searches.
Have you heard the news?
The CPL is back.
Yes!
The finals coming to Guyana.
Absolutely brilliant.
It's going to be a carnival of cricket.
It's going to be a carnival of cricket.
It's going to be a carnival of cricket. See you there.
Win a full gaming setup, Xbox X, gaming chair, gaming speaker and headset, or any of over 60 weekly prizes like Oculus Quest 2, Mini 2 drone, Nintendo Switch, and many more top gaming prizes. Check below for details.
Fuel it up and drive, Super 95. Tune up, fuel it up and drive, Super 95. Tune up. Protect your fuel system, boy. High mileage and performance, boy.
Gaia Gioil Super 95 gasoline gives you more reasons to drive and is available at 56 service stations nationwide. For affordable price, high performance, and high mileage, choose Guyol's Super 95 gasoline.
Fuel it up and drive.
Across the region tonight, we begin in Peru, where the Attorney General's office has announced that it was including President Pedro Castillo in an investigation into alleged crimes including influence peddling, collusion, and criminal organization. Peru's public ministry on Twitter said Pablo Sanchez, the country's top prosecutor, will lead the investigation into the president, given the seriousness of the accusations made in an investigation against former Minister of Transport and Communications Juan Silva and 6 legislators from the opposition party. The prosecutor's office began working on the case more than 3 weeks ago to determine if there was an alleged criminal network in the ministry to award public contracts. According to statements made by a collaborator and businesswoman linked to the government, President Castillo would have had knowledge of such a network. The preliminary investigation against the president comes at a time when the leftist president is facing other investigations of alleged corruption, as well as widespread and low approval ratings after only 9 months in office. Colombian leftist Gustavo Petro came out on top in the first round of the country's presidential election yesterday and will face a surprise contender, businessman Rodolfo Hernandez, in a second round on the 19th of June. Petro, who is a former member of the M19 guerrilla movement and who has vowed profound economic and social change, had 40.3% of the votes. National Registry official tallies showed, with 99.9% of ballot boxes counted. Hernandez, a septuagenarian former mayor who has promised to fight corruption even though he is under investigation for graft, won 28.2%. Surveys ahead of the first round showed Hernandez, who now has the support of the third-place candidate Federico Gutierrez, and likely many of his supporters, would lag just a few points behind Petro in a runoff vote. The 62-year-old Petro, former mayor of Bogota, has consistently led opinion polls on promises to redistribute pensions, offer free public university, and begin to change what he says are centuries of profound inequality across Colombia. And finally tonight, international news. The head of the Methodist Church in Nigeria, Samuel Kano, has been freed after being abducted on Sunday, a church official confirmed to the BBC. He was traveling with 2 other priests on a highway in the southeastern state of Abia when they were kidnapped. It is unclear how they were freed, but separatist groups frequently carry out abductions in the region. His release has led to jubilation in Nigeria's Christian community. Soon after the news of the abduction came out, members of the Methodist Church in the country started hourly chain prayers for the release of Dr. Kano and the other priests. Kidnappings, often for ransom, are common in many parts of Nigeria. And that's your News Source Evening Bulletin for tonight. I'm Gordon Mosley reporting and encouraging you to stay safe.